Hi guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a tutorial on how to make this pendant. So if you want to see how I do it and the steps I take, then stick around and watch to the end. Welcome to this video. We're going to be doing a bit of a tutorial today, and we're going to wrap this Maligano Jasper. Hopefully you can see it okay. The light is a little bit squiffy in here today, but we're going to wrap this Maligano Jasper, and we're going to use copper wire. So we've got 4 lengths here of square copper, which I will measure for you so you can see roughly what you're using. This is probably a little bit more than you're going to need, but that's okay. So this is approximately 13 inches in length. You are probably not going to need all of that. This is a 0.8mm square copper wire. So when we're wrapping it, we want to try and make sure that we're keeping the wires nice and level with each other, so you get this nice effect. And then we're going to use a 0.4mm bare copper for our wrapping wire. So to start with, what we're going to do is just create the base part of the pendant for here. So the stone is going to sit this way up with the point at the top. So we're going to build a little cradle for it to sit in at the bottom. This is very, very simple. So we're just going to hold the 4 wires together and just hook the 0.4 weaving wire over the top and round. Now we're just going to do that 4 or 5 times, and you'll see that I kind of use my fingernail to push the wire in nice and tight with itself. And then on the 4th or 5th one round, whichever one you really feel comfortable with, you're going to take your flat nose pliers and you're just going to squeeze them all together and flatten them down so it just holds onto that wire nice and tight. And we're just going to try and keep them nice and clean and nice and tight together throughout the whole wrap. So I'm using this 0.4mm wire off of the reel. It's not something I've always done, but more recently I have. It does reduce the wastage that you accumulate from, certainly if you're sort of creating a number of pendants. But we want to just keep wrapping this round, and every so many wraps, I tend to do between 5 and 10 depending on how the wire is sitting. We're just going to get those flat nose pliers and again squeeze them together and then flatten them down. So we end up with this nice sort of wound wrapped appearance here. So we don't want too much of this, so I think I've done about 12 wraps so far, so that's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. So stopping every so often and just checking your work, making sure that everything's sitting neatly. We're probably going to do maybe 5 more. So I don't tend to count my wraps, but obviously it does help sometimes, but it really depends on the size of the stone. So I tend to sort of eyeball most things. And once you get to a point with the style that you're wrapping in, you will start to you'll start to probably be able to do the same thing, just eyeballing it. But it's always nice when you're first starting out to kind of have that guideline, I suppose. So obviously I've just snipped the wire off the reel, and I'm just going to secure that down, give it a pinch, and then I'm just going to flip this over, and with the little tail that's on the other end, I'm just going to do a few more wraps and just sort of reduce the wastage that we have. We don't want to keep throwing away copper. So we're just going to go around a few more times, pushing them up and just making sure that we don't overlap or cross over. And then once you get to the last of that tail, again cut off any excess, Try not to pull your camera over. Cut off any excess, give it a squish, check the other side, give it a smush, and then just really give it that final push down. So you'll see now we've got a really sort of solid base for the stone to sit in. So then the fun part starts. So this is where we start shaping the wire to fit the stone. So I'm just going to move those out of the way for a second. So what we want to try and do is sit the stone on the wire and just get it central on that wrap. So if you kind of imagine that's where you want the wire to sit. So we're going to try and position the wire on the stone there, pinch it all together in one hand, and then with the other hand you're just going to gently tease those wires up. So what you might find is, depending on the size of the stone and the stiffness of the wire, you might get this sort of gapping effect here. An easy way to overcome that is to place the stone down on the desk and give it a smush, but we can also fix it just by teasing the wires up with our thumb. So as you can see, we've got quite a lot of excess, but we're going to come quite tight to the stone on this one, so we're going to hold it roughly about there, and we can also fix this bottom bit once we've done this step as well. So we're going to hold that. I'm just going to let the stone drop out a second, and we can straighten that up a little bit there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab this back wire with our flat nose pliers, and we're just going to very gently flick it in, and then just do the same on the other side. Again, just flicking that in. I'm doing this at a funny angle today, so hence why I'm not getting a good grip on the wire. So flick it in, and then you'll see that the stone will actually just sit on top of those two wires with this base wire at the bottom. Again, you can just work to straighten that base wire a little bit, and then just again position the stone, get it where you want it, make sure that the wire is coming around, and the stone is reasonably central in there, so you can see the stone is sitting there on its own. And then we're just going to straighten these all up a little bit, pull them across and in. So when you're positioning your stone, like I said, we want the wires to come in quite close to the stone here, so it's a smaller pendant. Small pendants are fiddlier, obviously, because there's less to hold on to, and we want to try and pull the wires up along the stone and then get the wires to bend. Same here, we're going to come up the stone, get them to shape in nice and comfortably on the stone there, and then we're going to bend the wires, so we end up with this position here. Okay, so as I say, I'm doing this at a bit of a funny angle because I'm trying to watch on the camera. I'm not particularly great with the camera. So there you go, you can see that it's sitting nicely in there, and it's held as well, which is quite nice. So what we want to now try and do, we've got all of these wires in line up here, all of these wires in line up here. We're going to try and hold them there at the sides and pull across some of our weaving wire again. And we're going to hook it across, and we're going to leave this tail hanging out. So you can just either hang it out between your fingers or just tuck it underneath your fingers, but just keeping it there. And we're just going to come around the front once, pull it in a bit tighter twice, and we're going to do 10 wraps here. I always do 10 wraps here. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So this is where I tend to need this. which it just stops the wire from pulling against my finger, because I am actually pulling it around here quite tight, because we want this bit to be very, very secure. So this is going to be the base of what we call your bail. And then we're going to grab this bit and we're going to hoop it in, and we're going to come underneath the wires. So you can see there it's coming underneath the wires, out above the stone. And we're just going to pull it through once. We're going to do it twice, then we're going to go back the other way. Okay, so then that's just going to hold those wires all nice and tight at the bottom, and then I'm just going to trim the excess off there. It's good to have a little bit of excess here to start with, because if you need more wraps to actually secure the wire at the base of the bail, then it's good. I sometimes do like up to 3 or 4 wraps there. So what you can see is we've got 10 wraps here, and then a wrap on either side, and the little wire is just tucked in back here. What you can do is just give them a bit of a smush with your flat nose pliers, like so. So we've got the base of our bail and the stone is set. Now we just want to secure it. This is quite simple. So what I always do is I put my fingernail between the wires. If you haven't got fingernails, you can use your pliers, just tuck them in. And then all I'm going to do is, as low as I can, I'm going to place my thumb on the top of the wires here, pinch them all together, and then as low as I can, I'm just going to pull that wire in. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. So just push it up, holding it there, and then twisting it in. So what you can see is a bit more security on that stone. Cannot fall out. It's not moving in the wires. Okay, let me get this wire out of the way. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take 3 wires that are at the front. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to bend them one way. We're then going to take 3 wires behind that, bend them the other way. So as you can see now, we've got 3 wires going each way. Just ignore my puppies for a moment, please. And then we're going to just run our finger down between these 2 back wires just to separate them. And then with this long piece of wire that's still connected to the reel, we're just going to go once and twice around this wire. And that's just going to secure that wire so it can't unravel, it can't loosen, and it's all just nice and snug. So this is where it gets creative. So this is where you can actually have a bit of a play with the different styles and different wraps that you want to do. With this one, I'm going to do a very basic crossover wrap. So we've already done 2 wraps around the wire to the left. What I'm going to do is the wire's coming out of the back between those 2. We're going to come around behind the right wire, once around, and then again around the back, twice around. So your wire is between the 2. Making sure they're all nicely pushed down, we're going to go back to the left wire once, twice, around the right from behind once, twice, left, once, and twice, right, once, twice. So you can't see it yet because it's behind these other wires. But what you want to start doing is, as soon as you've got a little bit of a build up of weaves, is just push them down. And you want to try and make sure you keep these wires going up roughly the same angle, like so. Okay, so we'll just carry that on for a little moment. So left to right, 2 wraps from coming behind the wire. And I remember when I first started wire wrapping, this weave, it's not difficult. It's it's quite a simple weave, but actually getting used to it, holding the wire at the right tension, trying to keep everything in the right place, it can be a little bit fiddly to start with. However, practice and you'll get more and more used to doing it, and you will start to fly up the bail of your pendant, making it nice and quick and easy to do this part. So what we want to do is, because this pendant isn't huge, we don't want the bail to be huge either. So when we get to a point where we think we're about what will be halfway, so the height of the pendant, we stop for a moment, reassess, push everything down so it's all nice and scrummy and tight, make sure it's level, so we'll just do one more on this side so I can have a bit more white. So as you can see, we've got this nice sort of crisscrossy effect going up the bail. Now everyone does this bit a bit differently, so I will show you how I do it. I simply cross the wires over, put my finger in between, and then slide the wires down gently. And then I can kind of play with the shape a little bit until I've got the bail as I want it, at which point I'm going to hold those wires, take my flat nose pliers, and I'm going to just kink one wire one way and then try really hard to get the equal part on the other side. So now if I push these two together, I get my bail. Okay, now what I want to do is continue this weave all the way up, so I'm just going to carry on. Now because you're coming inwards this time, the wire does slip, so what I do is I hold it with my nail, come across to the other side, bring it in, hold it, bring it across, and then I just carry on that way. So if the wire does start to slip up the base wire, you can kind of pull it back as much as you can. Okay, so we're just going to come up these until they sort of join at the same point. Like so. Let's get carried away there, go one more than I need to. So we're nearly there, a few more times round. 1, 2, 3, nearly done. Good job. And okay, so 1, 2 and 3. So I always do 3 wraps around that last wire and then snip as close to that wire as I can. So we've disconnected the reel, and then we're just going to pull these wires up. So then what I do is I just go around, make sure it's all tidy. So to do that, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to squish all the way up the top of the bail, and then I'm going to take my bail making pliers, pinch and roll that bail over. So you can see I've now got the bail. It's not secure yet, and you've got your wires that you're going to use to decorate the pendant. So what I will do next is I will take one side of this bail wire, pull it to the front so it just comes around the edge. Before I do anything, I'm just going to squeeze that in so it comes around the edge, and then holding it quite tight with the hand behind, I'm going to start wrapping that wire around, and it goes around this wire as well, so it's holding everything nice and tight in place. I'm just going to go down until we get to the pendant, or as far as you want to, so it doesn't have to go all the way to the pendant. You know, you can get creative here. I keep hitting the camera with my wires and I'm very sorry. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to smush it down, tighten it up, make sure it's all set in place. So you can now see the bail, the stone and the actual frame are all in, done and secure. Okay. So with this second wire, I'm going to just bring that around to the front. And then what I do here, typically, is I just sit and have a look at it for a minute. So contemplate what you want to do to decorate this. I never have a design when I'm making these things. I just go with kind of what I think it looks. I go with my gut, basically. I go with what I feel. So with this one, I'm just going to sit and have a look at it for a few moments, and then I will start the decoration process. Yeah, great. So what I think I'm going to do, and again, this is kind of, it's something that evolves with the pendant, so things change as you're going around. So I'm going to trim this off, and I'm going to use this part of the wire, and I'm going to get my small nose, my very small nose round nose pliers, and I'm just going to grab the end, and I might trim a little bit more off this, I don't know, because I think this might be a little bit too long. What I'm going to do, like a little spiral, like so. And I'm just going to work that spiral until I'm happy. And again, excuse my puppies, they are back. So there you can see the little spiral is just sat neatly at the top there against the stone, and it's just gonna add a little bit of extra detail. Okay, so then with these extra wires that we've got going up here, these are longer than we need, but I'm not going to cut them down just yet because I'm still contemplating whether to wrap them or wind them bare. So when I say wrap them, what I mean is this detail here. So on this one you can see that it's got some wrapping around this middle section of the wire, and that can add just a little bit more depth to a pendant. But with a pendant so small, I'm trying to work out if I think it's going to be a bit too overkill. There is a point where, I mean, everyone's got things they like, but yeah, we will just have a think for a moment. I think I'm going to go bare, just because I just think that the stone is not just a you know, a one colour stone. You know, it's got a pattern on it. So I think if we go too much patterning, it's just going to be a bit much. So with the square wire, what I like to do, and I do this with round wire as well, is I try and hold it so all three of the wires stay in line with each other, because it just gives it a really nice look, I think. And I'm just going to try and bring that across and hold it there, so you can see that my three wires have now sat. What you get when you've got the three wires square to each other is you get like a nice sort of shimmer effect. And then what I'm going to do is with these three, so I work all six at the same time, because then what you can do is you can kind of cross them over and overlap them, and this again, it works really nicely with the square wire. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring them under that first wire there and hook them up a little bit. So you can see we've now got a loop and a loop. Then this one, I'm going to bring it around, and I'm going to keep that one in front. So you just keep bringing it around, and then when you start to feel the wires squishing out of line with each other, just tease them back in with your flat nose pliers. bringing them back round. And you can make these swirls different sizes. You can, you know, you can really go to town. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that across there. And then I'm going to come down with this one. And I'm going to do a little bit of a bougie-moogie, go round. There's no technical terms in my work, I'm afraid. I just make words up. So this is why you don't want a wire that's too hard, because if you're trying to move these wires around and they're really stiff, you're constantly fighting against the wire and it just becomes really, really hard work. So the softer the wire, the more pliability that you get. Okay, so what you can see, what I've done is I've gone round with this back one and then squiffy and out, and then this one here I've gone round and then I've gone down through here, back in, round and out. Okay, so there's, it doesn't all have to be, I don't do symmetrical, so I know some people do work to symmetry, I don't. And once you've got about, I don't know, what's that, 3/4 of an inch at the back, you just trim off to what you need. Sorry for the jiggly camera, I've just banged my head on the line. So what I do here is you've got these 3 wires now that have come out the back, and I'm just going to scooch my flat nose pliers under the base wire just a touch, just to lift it up, and then I'm going to grab the top wire here with my smaller ball nose pliers, and I'm just going to pull it. Now I don't bend the wire, I pull it because then you won't kink it, and then you can guide it under, and then you feed it around. I don't know what it is, every time I try and do a video my dogs just decide that it's time to start charging around behind me. As we've got laminate floor here, that makes a bit of a racket, so apologies. So what I've done is I've gone round once and then I've just trimmed off the excess, and I'm just going to grab that end and I'm just going to squeeze it around that wire. So you've secured that first one. You just then repeat that with the second and the third wire, and again just try not to cross them over, so if they start to cross over just fix that before you go too far, and then squishy, trim, and pull that round and give it a squish, and then the last one is coming around and down underneath, feed it through, squish it, and then trim it, and squeeze in. So what you've got now is this wire is completely attached to the back, it's not moving. We then do the same with this one, so we're going to bend it around, so we're at the top of the pendant on this one. It doesn't change what we do, so we just trim off the excess, pop that in the recycling bin. Let's pop these bits in the recycling bin as well. She's such a naughty dog. Okay, so same thing, we're just going to squish the flat nose plier under there, raise it just a little bit so it's just got a little bit of air under it to move the wire, and then same thing, pulling it down under that wire, feeding it through, and then working it to where you want it. So unfortunately my camera decided to go on to standby for the last little bit of that video. Fortunately we had pretty much finished and we were just attaching the last of the wires to the back base wire, and we have a completed pendant. So here's the end product. I'll just show you this in the sunlight so then you can see. So you can see how the copper has got like a really nice shimmer to it. And the back of the pendant is all nice and secure onto the base wires. And we've attached a chain to that as well. So if you've enjoyed this tutorial, then please like and subscribe to the channel for more. I'm going to be posting hopefully every Friday. I am new to this whole YouTube malarkey, so bear with as I get better with the camera hopefully. And yeah, just like and subscribe and comment if you want to. And I hope to see you in the next video. Take care, bye.